Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for April 21st, 2020. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, if we can have a good friend of ours, Garnet Francis, come on with Paul and open us up in prayer. We'd appreciate it.
And in front of him.
I don't need to be on the screen.
Yes, you do.
All right.
Come on.
Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the gift of today and the blessings you've bestowed upon us. We ask for prayer for those who are ill, both with the virus and with other illnesses. We ask for your watch care over this board, their families, and our community as a whole. Tonight, as we begin this meeting, we ask for wisdom for the board as they work so hard to make the important decisions that affect our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. I just want to say to the public really quick before we get started, this is new for us. This is new for you as well. Be patient. We're having some technical difficulties, but we're doing the best we can. So we're going to get through this, and we appreciate you tuning in. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is submitted.
Support.
Okay. We have a motion and we have a support. That was all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Ms. Hirschberger, could you take the roll, please?
Was the second by Clemens?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry? Still waiting for her to get connected. Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0, and that is one of our technical difficulties. Ms. Tinneberry is trying to get on here. Okay, item number 3 is the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends A, approve and place on file the minutes of the March 3rd, 2020 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, approve and place on file the minutes of the March 16th, 2020 special meeting of the Bedford Township Board. C, accept and place on file the general savings, pooled funds and CD reports from the treasurer for the month for February 2020. D, accept and place on file the general savings, pooled funds and CD reports from the treasurer for the month of March 2020. E, approve and place on file the revenue expense report and balance sheet for the period ending March 31st, 2020. F, accept with regret the resignation of Justin Arnold from the Lewis Avenue Redevelopment Committee effective immediately. G, reappoint Mike Sprott to the Lewis Avenue Redevelopment Committee for a second term ending 12/31/2021. H, appoint Joan Branham to the Lewis Avenue Redevelopment Committee for a first term ending 12/31/2021. And I, appointment of Bob Potter as a second alternate to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a first term ending 12/31/2022.
Motion to approve the consent agenda is submitted.
Support.
Okay, motion by Mr. Steiner, supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Is Ms. Tinneberry in yet? No. Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Okay, item number 5 is public comment. We're going to hold for about 20, 25, 30 seconds. We know it's delayed a little bit. If you have public comments, now would be the time to do so for board agenda items only. So we'll go ahead and give it a few here. And if you're at home watching, now would be the time to call in on the number you see on Buckeye Cable and put the pin in, and then we'll hear your comment come through. Okay, that's been about 40 seconds. I don't think we have any public comments coming in, so we'll move on to staff reports. So 6A, approval of the Monroe County Public Safety Communication System Subscriber Agreement. Believe we have Chief Massengill on with us.
Good evening. The agreement is for the radios that were purchased as part of the county grant. So just as it was back in the early 2000s when the radios were secured through a grant with the county. There's agreement that goes out. It basically says that we're accepting it's close to 63, 64 radios that we've accepted, that we'll be responsible for the maintenance, the upkeep of them, that the county will be responsible for maintaining the towers and the radio system itself. So it's just essentially accepting responsibility for the radios and basically ownership for the radios moving forward.
Okay. Any discussion, comments? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion to accept the agreement with Monroe County for the 800 megahertz public safety radio system subscriber agreement as submitted and agreed to by Chief Massengill.
I'll support.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Steiner, supported by Mr. Francis. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Montry,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni,
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 6B, approval of a bid for an advanced life support capable ambulance for the Bedford Fire Department. Chief Massengill?
Yes, sir. So back in February, we sent out bids for an ambulance to replace a 2007 McCoy Miller ambulance. We received bids back, and we've been holding on to those bids, waiting for the board meetings. In the meantime, as an alternate to the bid, we took a look at a 2019 demo unit that the dealer had that met our specs. So basically, the specifications that we have put out for our last few ambulances have been popular, so they've been using those and building demo units for them. The demo unit has about 2,600 miles on it. We'd see a savings of around $8,000 if we took the demo unit now, as opposed to having one built and taking possession in the fall. The money I spoke with Krista, the money is in the account from the fire apparatus and equipment millage. So our recommendation would be, instead of ordering one now and having it built, waiting till the fall and having another $8,000 in expenses, our recommendation would be to accept the demo unit as an alternate bid. Another thing that we looked at as well is there's some extensive work on that 2007 McCoy Miller ambulance that we still have in service that we're going to need to do before summer. And so we'll see some additional cost savings now as opposed to ordering a new one by accepting this demo unit. So we think that's probably the most prudent way to move forward with it. In the end, we think we'd be around $20,000 in savings. The 2,600 miles isn't concerning. It's the same warranty. And we've got to keep in mind too, that to bring it back from Nebraska when it's built, it's about a 750 mile trip. So even a new one in the fall would have 800 or so miles on it by the time it got back here. So the mileage is not a concern to us either.
I appreciate you looking to save us money. I think it's a good idea, good option. I think with the low miles, 16,000 miles, I believe you said what was on it. I think it's a great option for us and saves us money and still gets our product. So I think it's a good idea, a good option. Discussion from board members.
I got a question.
Mr. Francis?
Is the intention that this would be replacing one of the units that we have now, or in addition to the units we have now?
That's correct. It would be replacing. So right now we have three. We have one that's a frontline ambulance in each of the stations. We have one we keep as a backup.
Right.
The 2007, we can't see putting the money into that it's going to need to keep it. There was some talk early on when we started the bidding process. We had some consideration towards perhaps keeping it as a utility vehicle, but it's in pretty rough shape. We just don't see where it would be any value to repair and put that money into it at this time.
So the intent is to maybe sell that at some point?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more comments or thoughts? Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make the motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the purchase of the 2019 ambulance from R&R Fire Truck Repair to come equipped as recommended by Chief Massengill for a total price of $243,326.
A second.
Okay, motioned by Mr. Clemens, seconded by Trustee Steiner. Discussion?
I have a question. I thought the demo was not going to be any more than 215.
Well,
So
we need to add the Lucas device to it, and that's the supplemental invoice that was
Okay.
included.
All right,
The
thank
new one-
you.
The new one already had it on, but this unit did, the demo unit did not, as I understand it.
Okay,
Correct. So the Lucas device, the stretcher, the harnessing, all of that stuff was included in the original bid, but since this is a demo, it hasn't all been included. So I sent out the separate information from Stryker for that equipment, and the total comes up to the 243,326.
okay.
The breakdown of that total is the ambulance unit itself is not to exceed 215,000, plus the Stryker invoice for the Lucas unit plus a stretcher that adds up to 28,326 for a total of 243,326.
I think that's good information for the public to know where we came up with that number.
I do too.
No, it's good. Any more comments, discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr.
Who was the
Hertzberger?
second?
Mr. Steiner,
Rick.
All right,
could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Montry.
Aye.
Is Ms. Tinnevery with us yet? Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Okay, moving on to a new business, 8A, vouchers for payment through March 24th, 2020. Ms. Hirschberger?
These are the vouchers, the 8A and 8B that I read are the vouchers that have already been paid, but we still need to approve them now. So for 8A, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the following vouchers for payment. General Fund, $363,823.76. Fire District, $43,630.01. Police Fund, $1,208.61. Park Fund, $18,648.63. Fire Equipment, $15,853.53. Transit System Fund, $36,144. Library Fund, $4,502.12. Water Revenue Fund, $250. Enchanted Forest, $92,835. Springbrook SAD, $651.92. Stonegate SAD, $4,064.51. Green Hills and other SAD, $5,200. Barbara Lee Harmony, $39,725. Downtown Development Authority, $4,816.31. Sewer O&M Fund, $438,445.39. Trust and Agency, $6,029.38, for a grand total of $1,075,828.17.
I'll support.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion from board members? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry with us yet? Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item 8B, vouchers for payment through April 7th, 2020, Ms. Hirschberger.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $28,632.52. Fire District, $14,682.23. Police Fund, $2,780.98. Park Fund, $1,319.04. Library Fund, $3,608.40. Indian Acres, $1,739.75. Lewiston Estates SAD, $1,719.44. Downtown Development Authority, $212.91. Sewer O&M Fund, $1,309,104.71. Trust and Agency, $2,560, for a grand total of $1,366,359.98.
I'll support.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Paul, do you want to explain quickly the sewer and O&M fund? Why it's so high?
It includes a big bond payment. That's what the million, it's $1,309,000 is the total, and about $1,300,000 is for the bond payment.
Okay. Thank you very much. Could you call the roll, please, Ms. Hirschberger?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Nancy's still not connected. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, motion passed 6-0. Item 8C, vouchers for payment through April 21st, 2020, Ms. Hirschberger.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $52,228.34. Fire District, $191,849.16. Park Fund, $712.29. Library Fund, $25,604.51. Water Revenue Fund, $164,148. Stonegate SAD, $474. Wanda Estates, $628.50. Sewer O&M Fund, $157.01. Trust and Agency Fund, $144, for a grand total of $435,945.81.
I'll support that also.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion?
I just want to say, point out that we got that includes the painting of the library from that bid, that job's done and paid for. It's a nice add-on.
Okay, very good. Any more discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Nancy's still not connected. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 8D, rezone parcel numbers 5802-665-005-00 at Lewis and Valletta, and 5802-665-006-00 at Lewis and Board. From C1 local commercial to R2A, one family residential. Okay, this is Mrs. Tinnevery's item. Does anybody have any comments or questions about it? It's to request to rezone 2 parcels from C1 local business to R2A. Anybody have any comments or thoughts on it?
Now, just for the residents, this is the end of the road in Lewis or Wanda Estates, just so people are trying to figure out where we're talking about. It's 2 vacant lots on the end. So it's on the end of in between Borg and Valletta Drive off of Lewis.
By Giant Oak Golf Course, close to it.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I could put something on the record, this is Marty Camprath. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
you're good.
Yeah, the rationale for the rezoning as recommended by the Planning Commission was that the properties are now vacant and the residential land use is consistent with the township master plan. And the properties are located in an area predominantly residential land uses. And unless zoned, the single family homes cannot be built on the properties. And also the properties have access to the township sewer and public water systems. And those were some of the rationales that our planner also stated in her recommendation.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. Makes sense. Anybody have any comments or questions for Marty? He's our planning legal. I think it makes good land use. It's makes sense. So if nobody has any questions or comments, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, this is TC. I'll make a motion that this board approve the request to rezone the 2 listed parcels, parcel number 5802-665-005-00 and parcel 5802-665-006-00 from C1 to R2A.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Clemens, seconded by Trustee Steiner. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor?
Yep.
Just a friendly amendment, if we could also include the notes and recommendation from our planning department, as Mr. Camprath just stated. Point A, subject properties are vacant. Point B, the residential land use is consistent with the township master plan. C, properties are located in the area predominantly residential land uses. D, unless rezoned, single-family homes cannot be built on the subject properties. And E, the properties also have access to the township sanitary water and sewer systems.
Accepted.
Okay. Any more discussion? Comments? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Montry,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Nancy, Ms. Tinnevery is not connected yet. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 8E, rezone parcel number 5802-034-001-10, the corner of Fire Creek and Lewis, from C1 local commercial to RT 2 family residential. Marty, would you like to bring us up to speed on this one as well?
Give me a moment. On this property, this is the Fire Creek parcel that the developer found to be of small size when trying to fit a commercial structure on the parcel with the commercial setbacks and other requirements and parking requirements according to our ordinance. And the planner, again, the township planner, Lucy Fortin, looked at this parcel in the request and found that it is consistent with the township master plan goals and policies. That is the request to rezone it to residential. It follows the mixed use future land use designation. It provides for suitable transitional use between adjacent single-family residential uses on the west side of Lewis Avenue corridor and the commercial and high-intensity residential, which is the Hickory Creek senior housing land uses along the east side of the corridor. And it is supported by adequate utilities and road infrastructure, and there is adequate room within the property for buffering and screening to alleviate some of the potential negative impacts of the adjacent high intensity land use.
Okay, any board members have any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I will make the motion to approve the zoning request for parcel number 5802-034-001-10 located on the south side of Fire Creek Drive at Lewis Avenue. And with the following comments also included. That our planning commission made recommendation to the township to rezone the properties from C1 to RT as number one, residential use is consistent with the township master plan goals and policies. It also follows the mixed use future land use designation. It provides for a suitable transitional use between the adjacent single family residential uses on the west side of Lewis Avenue corridor and also the commercial and high intensity residential such as the senior housing land uses along the east side of the corridor. It also is supported by adequate utility and road infrastructure. And there's also adequate room within the property for buffering and or screening to alleviate some of the potential negative effects and impacts of the adjacent higher intensity land uses.
Mr. Supervisor, this is TC. I'll support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Any more discussion? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Montry,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery. Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Moves us to item 8F, approval of the bid to seal and fix 6 township parking lots. We put this out for bid in conjunction with the 2 of the park board lots and 3 of the fire department lots and the Bedford Library.
This afternoon, just didn't know.
We know when we put projects together, you could save money. So that was the thought process behind it. And we have a bid here that's very competitive. Chief Massingill, if you'd like to talk a little bit about your parking lots. I know one of them is Temperance Fire Station. That's our big bill. That parking lot needed a lot of work. So, I mean, I think it's very important to maintain our parking lots and keep up on them. Otherwise, they end up being total overhaul fixes. So anybody have any questions? Or Chief, do you want to, if anybody wants to speak on any of the projects?
I think just as far as Station 3 goes, it's important to get ahead of it now, so that we don't end up like Station 1 is. Station 1's in really bad shape, and we've realized it was deteriorating pretty quickly in the past couple of years. Station 3 was starting to break up, so we're thankful that we're getting ahead of that a little bit. We're going to save them money on a major overhaul, but as Station 1 stands right now up in Temperance, it needs a lot of work to it. So.
Any more questions or concerns? Now, typically we get 4 bids. I'm not sure why. We called multiple companies, put it out on all of our typical areas where we put out bids, and we got one bid.
Was this the same company that, that did the township
No,
building? That's what I didn't
Nope.
think.
nope, they're not. So,
What's the timing that's proposed for these projects?
there isn't one at this time because it's not a critical project.
So as soon as they're released,
Within this, it says no later than June 1st, doesn't it?
We're gonna have to relax on that. Cause this was, gotta keep in mind, this has been put out for bid, Trudy, how long ago?
Well, we opened the bids March 12th. And it was
So-
out for bid probably 3 or 4 weeks prior to that.
So we probably need to approve to push this to at least the end of August to have them be able to have it done by.
Are they not allowed to work?
It's not a critical job.
Okay.
I mean, we probably could figure out a way to justify it, but,
Nice time to get stuff like this done.
you know, so we'll look into it. I mean, if it's something that the governor's orders allow us him to do, we'll get it done. But if it's not, we gotta wait. So. Okay, I look for a motion to approve the contracts. Trudy, do we need to approve these separately or as one because it's one bid?
It's one bid, you need one motion.
Okay, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I did have one last question. I apologize. Is there any reason to believe that waiting would likely draw either more bidders or a lower number? Or are we fairly convinced at this point that we're not going to see that?
Well, as I always do, after the bidding process is over, I called to try to talk this company down, and they bid it hard. They bid it tight to get the work. They want to start doing work in Bedford Township, so he couldn't come off of it even $500.
Okay, well, thank you for putting in the phone call. I just wanted to be sure that there would be no benefit to waiting.
I don't think we'll get it done cheaper.
Okay.
You know, I'm afraid if we don't accept this, we'll end up 6 months further out, and the parking lots will only deteriorate more. So, Mr. Montreux.
I got a comment. Go ahead.
How will this get split into, like, for payment purposes?
Well, that'll be on Mr. Manning. We're going to have to bill the park board. We're going to have to bill. I'm not sure how the fire department will probably take on that of our general fund, I would assume. But the library will come out of the millage.
Yep.
So it'll be separated as far as that goes.
Okay.
I got a comment.
Mr. Francis?
My guess is, as soon as the governor releases these various conditions that she has set in place that prevents this work from being done, everything's going to break loose. We've got a lot of road projects that are out there, and everybody's going to be busy as heck. So I think the bids are going to be going up, not down, if we wait. So I think we should approve this now and get this locked in, because it's probably as low a price as we're going to see.
I agree.
Because all the projects that they're proposing at the state, plus the ones that we're proposing from the road commission and all the other counties in the state, they're all going to hit at the same time, and there's only so many contractors to handle it, and they're just going to pick the biggest apples that are there. I think they're going to get whatever price they can get. So I think this is a good time to approve this.
Okay, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion that we approve the bid from Monroe Asphalt Company on Max Linger Road in Toledo, Ohio, for the various projects as listed, for a grand total of $42,800 as presented.
I'll support.
Motioned by Mr. Francis, supported by Mr. Montreux. Any discussion?
Mr.
More
Supervisor,
Mr. Steiner?
just a quick question. Since there is a date on there, it says completion by June 1, we probably need to make a push on that. Just in case he can't get it completed as quickly, depending on when the governor releases essential work to other work.
I would recommend the end of August. A due date.
That's up to the motioners.
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that.
The person that seconded it have a okay with the recommendation?
I mean, without getting into my personal perceptions and perspectives on all of this, I feel like this is the kind of work that could totally get done during all of this.
Well, I will call him.
Decides, what's that?
I'll call him tomorrow and let him know that it was approved if it gets approved, and find out when he can start. You know, he might be able to get it done, you know, May 1st. I don't know. We'll feel him out.
I support getting this business back to work and being able to get our work done, and them letting him run his business. So I'd like to be able to let him do it now.
Okay. Well,
Oh, Mr. Supervisor?
yes.
Okay, then how about within either 30 or 45 days of our governor releasing these types of businesses to go back to work?
I like that. I'm okay with that too, Mr.
Instead of
Francis.
August.
You okay with that, Mr. Francis?
Of course.
Mr.
I'll
Montry?
accept it. Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Montry,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni,
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Okay, moving on to 8H, approve a contract with Monroe County. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on 8G, approve a contract with Mulch King for the amount of $16,000. It's that time of the year again. You've all got the contract, read it. It does have some changes in there because you all know there are some issues with the site as far as bringing it into compliance. We've had discussions with the owner and with legal, and they're moving in the right direction to get those things done. Couple of things I wanted to touch on. When the owner came to bring this compost station to Bedford, he was under the assumption that it could be run like his and the other spot he has, I think in Perrysburg. And his cost to put this place in and get it up and running and up to our policy or our ordinance was a lot more expensive than he originally thought. I think a lot of that went into is why he's charging. I know originally he talked about, hey, it's going to be free. It's going to be free. Well, now it's, you know, a $16,000 a year type deal. So I think a lot of that was due to the fact that it was so much more for him, you know, to open up and get operational. So I have talked to, I heard there was some emails. I wasn't privy to the emails because they weren't emailed to me. I did look into Stephen's disposal, if they did pick up. I emailed the memo to y'all. It would cost anywhere in the range from $120,000 to $200,000 to pick up the residents' leaves and grass and sticks. And you've seen the stipulations on there of what they would have to be, and you would be allowed 10 bags. So I think what we're doing right now is cutting down on burning. People have a free option. Our residents have an option to go take their stuff. They utilize the heck out of it. So I think it's a good thing for us to continue going. The residents love it and appreciate it. We get calls all the time with their gratitude of appreciation for the board moving forward on this. So anybody have any comments or thoughts?
I have a question on paragraph number 6, where it kind of outlines what the service provider's obligations are. And I guess it's to bring it all in compliance, but there's no deadline on that. Is there something we ought to show as a deadline when he has to comply? Because if he just stalls and never does it, we need to put a stop to that.
Well, it's pretty tough right now at the moment because you can't, nobody could do anything. I mean, he's working on what he can work on the site right now, and he's changing some things. But there's a few things he's gotta wait on too. And I mean, Trudy, how long ago was that conversation we had with legal that day with him? I mean, that was a couple months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we could touch base with him. I don't know how much farther along he is. He might be in compliance, but I know he's working with Karen and ordinance and building. I do know with his building, he's got to get plans for it and get them reviewed, and he's got to get it engineered properly. So he's got some work to do with that. But I do know he's moving forward.
What if we put a condition on it that we'll relook at this thing in 90 days, and if he hasn't made substantial progress, we'll reconsider the contract? It puts some sort of a time frame on it. We don't have to do it. We don't have to do anything after 90 if he's making good progress. But if he's not making any progress, I'm for changing the agreement.
So let's let Mr. Camper speak to the issue. Marty, are you
I agree
to what's going on with this? I know you guys wrote the agreement. I don't know if is Tom on as well with you, or is it just you, Marty?
Tom just came in the room with me.
Okay.
I would say, and Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, but if this paragraph is newly inserted because of some of the continuing issues that we have with his compliance of the site plan criteria.
Marty, could you please give us the paragraph?
6.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you give us the paragraph?
Paragraph 6.
Thank you.
But with respect to Paul's comments, either party in paragraph 8 talks about termination, and
right.
Either party can terminate the contract on 30 days notice. So if he's not doing what the township feels is necessary, then of course that action can be taken. The contract can be terminated.
Okay.
So I think we're pretty well covered, Paul. We'll monitor it. Trudy, I think we can have a conversation with him. I'll let you know probably this week, and let him know, hey, we're going to keep an eye and see how it goes, and we'll check in the next month or so, Paul, and see where he's at, and we'll come back.
That's fine with me. I'm agreed to that.
Ms. Hirschberger?
I have a question. The past contract, we had some troubles with him opening up the 7 days and the 7 hours. Do we have a guarantee that he's not going to do that again this time?
Well, this is Tom. All I can say is it's in the contract that he has to perform, and we can terminate the contract if he's not performing. And look, I would just say this. I understand that it's a bad deal ordinarily to enter into a contract with someone who is violating the terms of the site plan and the past contract and what have you. But you have to weigh the importance of this service to the community and to the township. And so I would say this. I would say that if you do enter into this contract and pay him the $4,000, which is the first installment, that we then monitor him, send the ordinance enforcement people out possibly once a week to talk to him and have a laundry list of what he's expected to do and to try to keep him on line. And we can just tell him that the contract, I think, calls for 4 payments, and he could lose out on some of those payments if we terminate this contract. So
right.
I think that's what I would say. And look, again, I just say it, I understand, I support the planning department. You know, we have these rules in place, we have these site plans in place because we expect them to be adhered to. But I think in this case, we need to be firm with them, and we have the control after the contract is signed, if we do go ahead and sign the contract.
Okay.
We can just agree as a board, separate from this, that before we make the second installment, we'll have a review, see where he is.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I think for that, Paul, we should send somebody out there to talk to him and to inform him or send letters, so that we have a record, and he has a record of his non-compliance, Like right now, I don't know whether he knows his non-compliance. I mean, I
He
think.
does. He does. We've talked,
Right.
we've talked to him in depth. Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, and one of the provisions in that termination agreement, not only is the normal 30 days termination, but if he's in violation, he can be terminated within 3 days of written notice, according to the agreement.
That's right, Mr. Steiner.
So it's even tighter than 30 days if
Yeah,
absolutely
that was-
necessary.
Yeah, that was a new provision that I put in this year to try to tighten this up.
Just so you guys know, we did talk to him about the times he was open, and then when we do get calls that he isn't open, we're on him. But the reasons typically when he's not open, it's because of inclement weather, rain, snow, whatever. He will send his people home. So I mean, there are circumstances he's not open sometimes, but it's very rare from what I've been told.
All right.
He knows, our agreement. He knows that he's got to be open 7 days a week, for a certain amount of time. So we'll monitor that as well.
And I also added a provision, excuse me, Trudy, I also added a provision in here where he admits that he is not in compliance. I mean, there's a phrase in here saying, everyone knows he's not in compliance. So if he signs this, he's admitting that he's not in compliance. And I don't know whether he's seen this contract or not, but that's what he would be admitting to that. I don't know what good that does, but at least he's admitting that when he signs the contract, he's not in total compliance with the rules of the board and the township.
Ms. Hirschberger?
I just want to know, do you know that he's already allowing residents to do this? Because this contract's from March. Has he been
Yes.
allowing?
Yes.
Okay,
And they're not being charged.
okay.
And one thing for the board to know, I mean, part of what he did is he cut down his buffer. He had his woods that was up, he cut down, which was part of the plan. So I don't know what Karen's gonna do with that end of it now. But, so we'll look into it. We'll keep on it. We'll make sure he's open, and we'll keep the board updated on exactly what he's doing to move forward. As long as he continues to move forward, just keep in mind, and I know it's been 2 years and I'm not making excuses for him, but the guy came from a site in Toledo where there's no rules and nobody, to Bedford where we're keeping, he's got ordinances and things he's got to comply with. So it's a big difference for him. And I don't think he was prepared for it. So we'll keep on him. We'll get him in compliance.
And that's all part of due diligence. So if
You're
he
right.
can't keep up with it, then unfortunately he won't last.
Yep. So, and he is doing very well. I mean, he's got so much material from the community. He can hardly keep up. He's doing very good. So, I mean, the residents love it. So any more comments or questions?
I just appreciate Graham's, reading through this. I just appreciate Mr. Graham's, time and wording, protecting the township, reading through this. I just appreciated that.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Okay, I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the, approve the contract with Mulch King for $16,000. I don't know if I have to put the dates in there. I would have made a provision. If they're not charging now, I would assume that we would make that in the full amount. Is our current governor allowing him to run his
Yes.
business?
Yes, it's considered essential because it's a recycling center. Okay, he's not just taking in trash and hauling it off. If that was the case, he'd be shut down. But we turned him on to the state when we got the calls from the community asking, and he was calling us. We, do the same with everybody else. You gotta find out, from the state and from the governor whether or not you're allowed to do that. So he did that, and he's allowed to. So we have a support.
I support.
Who was that support? Is that Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Clemens supported. Any more discussion or comments?
Yes, the length of the contract runs from March 15th, 2020 to December 15th, 2020.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, could we add a friendly amendment that this will in fact be on the agenda in 60 days for us to review?
Trudy, could you take note of that?
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye, Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item 8H, approve a contract with Monroe County Business Development Corporation for $10,000. Has everybody gotten the email I sent you with the notes from Mr. Lake? Did anybody not see it?
I have
I
not
just-
seen it.
Okay. I emailed basically a layout kind of some of the projects he's been involved with and what he does for Bedford. I can tell you this from experience, the guy, his team, they do an amazing job. They're heavily involved. So just a few of the projects he's involved with, rolled alloys. They had 12 interactions with them, GH Gutter Service, AccuWorks, Bolzell NA, Ort Tool and Die, Cardin, Temperance Distillery, MedLtech, TTG Automation, MTS Seating, Syncreon, La Scala IT, Toledo Steel Supply, and Sunrise Windows. And I worked with him on almost all those as far as he's our go-to guy that brings information from the state. He's up to date on everything as far as when a project's ready, or what some of the benefits are from the state. He's very strategic, especially to that new developer that's looking to develop a big piece of property. We've had a few things going on at Stearns and Telegraph that he's been heavily involved with. As far as our boards and commissions, the EDC, the Lewis Avenue Redevelopment, he's at all those board meetings. Just very involved. And I think the money is well worth it, in my opinion. So anybody have any comments or questions? And just so some of the projects that all of you might not be aware of that he works at, are sometimes they are they're not known to the public at all, is Project Tons, Project PUP, Project Pipe, Project Elementary, Project Freeze, Project Relocate, Project Load Number 2, Project TTD, and Project Clearview. Those are some of the things that he works on. He's doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, a lot of meetings. So,
Mr. Supervisor, I think one other thing is that because of the size of our county, BDC is very active in business to business transactions. And I think a ton of businesses, both in Bedford and in the county, would tell you that a lot of their inner workings stem through the BDC. So I think it's important, not only just for new development, but coming out of all of this COVID, economic development obviously is going to be on the front of everybody's mind.
yeah. So, Mr. Francis, does that kind of help?
Oh, absolutely. I totally support this. I think it's a good investment.
Yeah. So, and too, with the coronavirus, I mean, he's been very informative. A lot of good information's come from his office for businesses to look at money available, grants, loans, whatever. So I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion that our board approve the contract as presented in the amount of $10,000 per year paid to Economic Development Corporation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Clemens, seconded by Trustee Steiner. Discussion.
I would just say personally, and I don't know, like I felt like this is the kind of thing I would like to have had a presentation of some sorts and then have something like this come back to the board. Like I'd rather, which obviously under current conditions might not have been as realistic, but like just this kind of thing is something that I would prefer to have had that kind of like a full presentation and something to marinate on instead of like just a form like this and then have it come back. But that's the only comment I would have on this.
Okay. And I'll relay that to him and let him know we'd like to have him at a future meeting. But he does regularly attend our board meetings, and does frequently give updates. So, okay. Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni,
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item 8I, approve the assignment of Bedford's interest in the Lewis Avenue Municipal Water Line Extension Project to the Monroe County Drain Commissioner. Y'all have your, well, why don't we let legal speak to this a little bit? This is a project that has been ongoing for a long time. It's been an interesting project to get this done. Basically, Trudy and I had some conversations because I think the bid came back higher than what was expected. And basically, Trudy held a hard line and said, this is the amount of money we have. And so basically, they agreed to let a check be cut to them and they would take over the project. So, legal, do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, yes. This was actually recommended by me because the way this project was bid, and it had to do with where the money was coming from. It was bid by the township for their portion of the project and the church for their portion of the project, which was okay, and that's the way Barry Bushman set it up, and that's the way he wanted it. But now that the money has been conveyed to your agency, to the drain commissioner as the county agency, your agent, and the church has paid, now what was on my mind was to remove the township and remove the church from the actual contracting with the contractor. Because if you were the contracting party, then a whole host of things can come up, overruns, construction meetings, and all of that. And that's what you have the agency for. And so it was only, it only made sense at this time, at this point. And in order to do that, okay, now I'm getting back, but in order to do that, it was recommended, and Barry Bushman recommended it, that we have a paper trail, an assignment of the authority to enter into the contract from the township and from the church. The church has signed one just like this, assigning their interest over to the drain commissioner. And now you would be doing the same. And I highly recommend it for the board's benefit, so as to remove itself as an obligated and contracting party.
I just want to mention a couple things for the public to keep in mind. This is two separate projects here. Bedford Township is not running a water line for Bridgepoint Church to put up their church and have water. Bedford Township has needed to do this for a long time. This is something that's going to be done in the future. Either way, there's been a lot of discussions from the Drain Commissioner's office to run water up to Samaria and down all the way to Secor and do one major loop. So it made sense for us to do it right now, to do it in conjunction. So I think it's a great thing. I think you're going to see neighborhoods tapping into it in the future, and that whole area will flourish because of the water. So I think it's a good move for us. Any more comments or questions or concerns?
I got a comment. We're proposing this money be paid out of the water fund, which we have monies there just for this type of a project. And we feel, as at least I did when we first started talking about this, I feel it's a benefit for the township to do that for future tap-ins to this. It's not going to happen next week. But at least it's available and done so that anybody that wants to tap in can do so. The church happens to be the first one. That's it. We're paying to run it underneath the railroad and they take care of everything else.
Correct. Any more comments or questions?
Mr. Supervisor, I have a question.
Mr. Clements?
Tom, do we have any assurances, I couldn't find it in reviewing the contract, that our money would not be dispersed prior to the drain commissioner being in receipt of the other funds from all the other parties?
Well, now when you say that, I don't know who all the other parties are. I know that the church has paid its money and the drain commissioner does have that money.
That answers my question.
I know that the township has paid its money and the drain commissioner has that money. And that's the basis of doing this assignment, I believe. The money was there. Now they can enter into the contract. And the thing of it is, there is a benefit to this contract that will be entered into with Sal and Beans, but there's also obligations and burdens, and those are all now shifted over to the county agency.
Okay, great, thank you. That was my question.
That's what my clarification was gonna be, especially after the last couple of comments. These monies have already been paid. What we're looking at is a transfer of responsibility, more or less, correct? We're transferring our responsibility to the drain commission, and that's what we're doing with this, if making a motion on this, correct?
That's right, because the money's already, it's not a contract to pay money. The money's already gone. This is a contract, just like you said, to assign out the responsibilities, the benefits of having the contract, but really in a contract like this, there's burdens, with obligations, cost overruns, meetings with the contractor, change order, all of that is now in the lap of the agency. That's where it should be.
Okay.
And no offense, but especially not with a church. The church is just the church is not like a developer who has knowledge of contracting and construction and things. And so really, it just didn't seem like a good fit. All of it should be assigned over. Monetarily, it's been paid. Now all of that obligation, responsibility should be assigned over to the county agency who enters into these contracts all the time.
But I want the board to be reminded, keep in mind, take the church out of this equation. We do this project without the church. Okay, we're not doing this project with the church. This is our own separate project. So now we're paying the drain commissioner's office to take us off of it. So I just want that to be clear, that we're not running this line for Bridgepoint Church, because every developer in this whole community would say, why don't you run water lines for me? So it's two separate projects, just to be clear. Okay, we have a motion and support. Right?
I didn't hear a motion. Was there?
I looked for a motion.
You just said, hey, just for clarification, you just said something about we're not paying anybody anything for this.
We're cutting a check to the drain commissioner's office, and the drain commissioner's office is overseeing the project.
In the amount of?
I think it's $165,000. Trudy, do you have a?
164,000.
Right.
But again, I thought that those monies had already been paid.
I think they have been paid.
Yeah, that's not, there's nothing being added, correct?
No,
That's already happened.
No, this is just an approval.
This is a non-financial agreement.
Yes, that's okay. That's what I thought.
Mr. Supervisor, if it's all right with you, I'll take a crack at a motion. I would like to make a motion that our board approve this contracted that would take both our assignments and responsibilities related to this water line and assign them to the South County Water System for management of the project and future use maintenance.
I'll support. Does it need to go to South County Water, or does it need to go to the drain commissioner?
The drain commissioner is overseeing the project.
Excuse me, I would revise to drain commissioner versus South County Water.
Okay, then I'll support.
Thank you, Mr. Montroy.
Yes, sir. Thank you for
Any
working.
Any more discussion? You good with that motion, Tom, Marty? That motion sound good?
Yeah, and the authority is there to enter into the assignment, to
Okay.
execute the assignment.
Okay, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye, Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 8J, employees' leave and wages, explained by the township attorney. Mr. Graham? I'm not sure which.
I think this is Mr. Camprath's,
Okay. Well, I can update the board a little bit. I sent out an email last week. So originally when this happened, obviously, the board approved to give a 2-week pay for our employees when they go home. Okay, so seasonal, part-time, they got paid for a couple weeks. Okay, then after that, the seasonal and the part-time went on unemployment. Okay, so everybody else was at home up until last week. Starting today, we had Christine Eichler and Alan Matlow come back into the office because they're considered essential. I know Trudy and Nancy Jen have been coming to the office almost daily, and so is Krista Janizek to take care of the sewer bills because that's essential. Dennis Kohler has been taking calls from home ever since we've closed down. He's doing almost 50 phone calls a day, and he's still doing some permits if they're considered essential. All calls from the township have been going to the elected officials' cell phones. My calls, from my office been coming to our cell phones. But as far as layoffs already, you have Linda Willings laid off up in planning. You have Pete Carey, Kelly Elmer, and Shayla Pitson laid off. So what I did this week was bring back the people that are essential and anybody that can work at home. We're setting them up to work at home. Friday, we purchased a license with IT Right so that everybody can be set up at home who can work at home. So like Teresa Vitale, she was set up today to work at home and was given a load of work. But anybody that can't come into the office, I know Mr. Francis is going to bring back Amy in the treasurer's office. I'm not sure if he's going to bring her back tomorrow. Mr. Francis, can you speak to that?
I can, and decided not to do that.
Okay.
We've talked to her, and she has agreed to accept the 2/3 salary as one of the items, and hopefully the attorneys will present how that works.
Okay, so we'll get to the attorneys, but
She can't come back because her husband has been called back to work, and she's the only caregiver for her son because his school is closed, so there's no one to take care of her son.
okay.
So it'd be a hardship for her to come in.
Okay, I totally get that, but my point is if anybody that is not coming into the office and cannot come work at home, we need to submit layoffs, in my opinion. That's my suggestion to the board, but legal, it says here for you to explain it, so I'm not sure how you want to move forward, but.
Well, this is Marty Camprath, and it sounds like you have substantially taken the bull by the horns and
I
taken
have.
a lot of action since this agenda was put together. And we were really not sure of what we were supposed to talk about, not knowing what actions the township was taking. But we did receive an email with respect to the Federal Families First Coronavirus Responsive Act or Response Act. And that may be what Paul was referring to with his employee.
It is.
It's an act, a federal act that the township is subject to. And it really has a very narrow application. And it is not something that the township would necessarily implement because it is effective and it is in place now. And it affects or is a benefit to specific employees. And there's a laundry list of 6 criteria that an employee could fit under this federal regulation or this act. And the employee must be subject to federal, state, or local quarantine isolation order related to COVID-19, or has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine related to COVID-19, in other words, a doctor or hospital or medical facility, or is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking a medical diagnosis, or is caring for an individual subject to an order described in 1, which is subject to a federal quarantine order. Number 5 is caring for his or her child whose school or place of care is closed, or a child care provider is unavailable due to COVID-19 related reasons. And that may be the one that Mr. Francis is looking at. And 6 is experience any other substantially similar condition specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So the particular employee that feels that they would fit under one of these criteria would come to the township, their employer, and provide them with, I guess, the facts of their situation to show that they fit within those criteria. And if they do, then they get 2 weeks of paid sick leave.
Well, Marty, does that count? They've already been sitting at home for almost a month or so, being paid full benefits? Because all the employees, since this has happened, have been at home, paid full benefits, full wages, everything.
I would say that your payment of those employees, and Tom maybe could speak, but it doesn't sound like you applied the sick leave federal act criteria to those employees. And those employees didn't come to you looking for that benefit. So my gut reaction, and of course this is all new, in fact, the application of this law is so new, so we don't have any experience how to interpret it. But if you were paying them and you didn't establish these criteria when you made that decision, I would say that they currently are not under this federal act.
Okay, so the bottom line is this board has wanted to protect the workers since day one. Okay, we have great employees, some of the best. And the last thing we want to do is put them in a bad spot. So this board has paid everybody, okay, up until a couple weeks ago, when we had to let people go. But keep in mind right now, on unemployment, people are collecting an extra $600 a week with the federal. And I think it's $300 and something a week with the state. So all along, I think, if somebody meets the criteria, you know what I mean, and we have to pay them, I totally get that. I'm not sure if, Trudy, I know you have an employee that's at home, not working. Do they meet any of those criterias? I know they have children that are at home. I don't know. But I do know there's 4 people or 3 people that are at home that can't work from home and that we're paying full benefits and has been for almost over a month or however long this has been going on. So either we lay them off or unless we have to pay them due to the 5 or 6 criteria you just read. But it sounds like they only get 2 weeks. They've already gotten 5 or 6. So I don't know. Legal, it's on you.
Just so you know, I don't have any employees that aren't working. The one is working from home. I have her set up working at home. Because she's my elections clerk, she's been working with the state site.
Okay, I was unaware of that. I didn't know she wasn't working. Okay.
I have a question for Marty or Tom, if it's possible. Can the 2 of you explain what qualification reason number 1 is? Does that include the state closing the township and ordering the township to be closed? And that was because of the COVID-19. And the third, up above where it says paid leave entitlements, the third one down, it says up to 12 weeks of paid sick leave and extended family and medical leave paid at 2/3 qualified reason number 5, and that's the one that I was talking about with respect to Amy.
Yes, they would have to go to FMLA. They'd have to go to FMLA for the additional.
But somebody mentioned 2 weeks, and it seems like it's longer than that.
2 weeks is an emergency sick pay under EFMLA. And then they can get 12 weeks at 2/3 pay under FMLA.
2 weeks not paid though.
I believe the initial unpaid.
Hey, Tom, he's got to speak up if he's going to talk so the public can hear him. We can't hear what he's saying.
Yeah, we understand. So.
It's 10 days. I believe it's 10 days.
Yeah.
Just 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, okay, so of course, you know, there's two things going on here. There's how you are going to treat your employees in general because of this situation. Every employer has this issue and problem. This law office has that issue and problem. This particular law is one that is a federal law that was put into place to assist and protect the employees out there. And so, as Marty said, the township doesn't invoke that. That's its law right now. And, you know, if somebody qualifies under this, then they meet that criteria. And you're right, Paul Francis, there is a length of time here as long as they can show that they are, you know, meeting that one criteria, what the child care item, and it's a long time. What is it, like 10 weeks or 12 weeks? 12 weeks. And was the first 2 weeks not to be paid though?
Yeah, so initial 10 days unpaid.
Yeah, the initial 10 days were to be unpaid, and then after that it was to be paid. Now that's just the opposite of this other 2 week thing, which Marty was talking about, which was based on somebody actually being sick. You know, somebody having the COVID, you know, an employee or a family member having the COVID-19 illness. That's what the first item that was talked about. And again, I take it you don't have any of those people. And so really what you have primarily down there is whether somebody is going to invoke this, this family leave thing. Where I believe what the rule is the first 2 weeks you're not paid. And after that you are paid for, what is it, 12 weeks?
Yeah, it should be 12 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
So Amy could do that, but she doesn't get paid for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and see, this is all I think this really has to be applied by the board prospectively. Do you understand what I mean? I don't think, Paul, we can go back, Paul Peroni, we can go backwards. I think we have.
I'm not saying going backwards. I'm saying if you started it today.
Yeah.
Her first 2 weeks would be unpaid, is what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, and somebody has to fall into one of these criteria, Mr. Peroni. You know, they have to be either the sick or have a sick person or this child care. If they don't fall into one of those criteria, this law isn't applicable, but you still have the issues that you're struggling with. We're struggling with, every employer is struggling with. How when the governor says everybody is supposed to stay home, what are we supposed to be doing? Paying them, not paying them? Having them go on unemployment, not unemployment, keeping them, furloughing them, which is sort of keeping them but not paying them, and they come back. You know, there's a lot of issues there that don't have anything to do with this law, okay? And I know you're struggling with both of those, but if you don't, I mean, this really is only designed for somebody who's sick or has somebody who's sick, or
Garnet, would you come here, please?
Or they have the child care issue, right?
Yeah. There's looks like there'd be a limit of the amount of paid leave that can be paid over as well.
Yeah.
Paul, Paul Francis, you have to mute your end of your line if you're gonna be talking outside of the meeting.
Well, I lost the screen for some reason, and that's why I was.
Okay.
So Paul Peroni, it seems like, and this is what Marty was saying, it seems like since this agenda was put together, the township has made some decisions, apart from this law, like how you're going to deal with your employees. Who's essential, who has to come to the office, who can work at home. You know what I mean?
Assessing is essential. Okay, treasurers is essential. I don't know, is clerks essential, Trudy? Clerks is essential.
Yes.
So
I'd say that-
you've got those 3 departments that are essential. Everything else is not essential. Okay, so now we've made ordinance essential because the fire department quite frankly, shouldn't be handling all the burned complaints. So they're back for that, and maintenance is essential so we can maintain the integrity of the buildings. So we're only talking about, and I was not aware of Angie working at home, so we're only talking about 2 employees, and they're both in the treasurer's department.
Okay.
And I would hate to see them,
That can't work at home and they can't come in.
I would hate to see them suffer the loss of even 10 days for something that was not their fault. They didn't close the office. The governor closed the office. She created the problem and why they can't come in. And it's not their fault, yet we're penalizing them if we go with a 10-day loss of pay.
Yeah, and again, just to keep saying the obvious, this law is to be invoked by the employee. Nothing stops the employer, the township, and the employee from doing whatever they want to do. Whatever arrangement that is to be made. You've already done some things. You've let some people go. There's this new phrase called furlough. What furlough means in my mind is you can get unemployment even though you're not fired. You can get unemployment by let go, not paid, but still kept.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's a lot of employees, Mr. Francis, that have been affected a long time ago from this, and I've named them. Our seasonal people and our part-time people, quite frankly, who have been there a long time. Many people have been affected by this, and they're all been given the option to work at home. If you cannot work at home, okay, if this was your and my business, okay, we wouldn't be talking. I mean, we've paid these people, okay, to sit at home for over a month. We're doing the best we can, okay, but it gets to a point to where, they're offering from federal, an extra $600 a month, and we're doing everything we can, and everybody's been brought back who could work. But let's be honest, there's 5 or 6 employees that are sitting at home on unemployment right now that are no different than the 2 in the treasurer's department.
None of which are full-time.
Doesn't matter to me, to
Well,
be quite honest with you.
it does matter to me. I'm sorry we disagree on that, but we're kind of grasping at straws on something. Maybe we ought to be thinking about this a little further.
Well, we only have 1 employee that would meet the criteria in the treasurer's department. The other one, I don't think would meet any of the criterias. All I'm saying is the board probably should decide tonight, because we're not going to have a meeting till after the quarantine's probably over. The board needs to decide what we want to do with a couple employees that can't come into work and that can't work at home. Do we continue to pay them, or do we lay them off?
Well, let's talk a little further on what furlough means that Tom brought up. And maybe we ought to do that instead of a layoff.
Yeah, the only difference, it's not much of it, but the only difference is, and what I see across the country, furlough is a whole new phrase that has never before been used. What furlough apparently means, because of the relaxation of being able to qualify for unemployment, you don't have to actually be fired. You can just be or laid off. You were just told that we're not paying you, but your job is secure. You know what I mean? Laying off means all bets are off. You're laid off, and we may hire you back and we may not. Furlough is more like, okay, we're going to pay your benefits, but we're not paying you. We're going to give you your benefits, but we're not going to pay you because you, what the whole idea is, I believe anyway, is that they can go and seek unemployment, even though they're not technically, finite, fired. And so that's what that means. And Paul Francis, I did want to get back to one thing that you said. I do not believe the governor's order meets the criteria of number one under this law, which is that the employee has to be quarantined. Okay?
Okay,
I don't
that
think
answers my question.
you'd asked that, and I've been thinking about it while we've been talking. I don't think that would qualify. And again, I think this law might be something that, you're spending, I think you're struggling with the other part of it besides this law, and that's how to deal with your employees. It's hard, it's difficult. All the employers are having a difficult time with it. But the difference that I see between laid off or terminated is that means you're laid off, you're not going to get paid, you're not an employee, they go get unemployment. That's how it normally works. But now I think they've allowed this furloughing, and I'm not trying to recommend furloughing or anything like that. I'm just saying what furloughing means, and what I see a number of companies doing is that they're saying, okay, we want you here, your job will be here when you can come back, but we're not going to pay you, and you can stay on our benefit package, but you're not going to be paid during this period. Meaning, I think what's going on is they can go and apply for unemployment. Again, I'm not promoting it. I'm just saying that's what I think the difference between furlough and termination is, or laid off.
Mr. Steiner?
Mr. Graham, I've seen quite a bit of this throughout my business world when it comes to the furlough, and you are correct. They're basically saying that people that are furloughed can collect unemployment. It generally doesn't mean it's mandatory, but it's in general, the companies that are using furlough are providing the benefits and just no pay, and they're allowed to go toward unemployment. But there's still no 100% guarantee that they will be have a job. I mean, because there's some jobs that'll eventually could be eliminated anyway.
I appreciate that clarification. I wasn't sure, but you're probably right about that.
Yeah, so and the thing is, I mean, it would not apply here, but you're primarily seeing it with your all your full-time employees. So really, for a part-time, it doesn't make much sense to use the furlough piece.
No.
But for a full-timer, if you have that, then you can protect their benefits legally. They can collect unemployment if for some reason that they collected money from the company at all for any reason during that time frame, then they would just have to pay the company or township back if they collected unemployment in the amount that was offset from that unemployment benefit.
I think I accept what you're saying, Mr. Steiner, and I'm sure it's right. But, in practical terms, I know I'm going to sound cold-hearted, but if you are furloughing somebody, I think you're at least giving them the idea that they might be hired back. When you're terminating somebody or laying them off, that is a no promises made type of thing. You're off. In fact, I don't think you would be paying benefits for somebody who was terminated.
That's correct. Terminated or laid off, they don't get the benefit. And again, the intent is to keep that employee if you use furlough. But again, there's no guarantee, because if there's not a job, ready when they come back, then you have to look at alternatives.
Right.
May I make a comment?
That makes sense. Does that make sense?
Mr. Francis?
I would prefer then calling this furloughing rather than layoffs, for that very reason. If we fully intend to have them all back as soon as we can open the office, we need the people. And it might only last another month. So the cost of keeping those people in line is 1 month's health insurance. To me, it's worth it.
We'll make the motion.
I have a question. Tom, could they use their sick time?
Yes. You mean like the sick time that the township offers, or the sick time that this law is giving?
That they have banked already.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yep.
I mean, I'm looking at it from the township standpoint. I don't see any reason why that couldn't be.
That's a good thought, Trudy.
And if it were under the federal act, they would be using their bank sick time also.
Okay.
Under this new law, okay.
A lot of moving targets in this thing still.
So what we could do is, Paul, I guess we could make a motion that, you know, to where you could, say you ask them if they want to use their sick time and they deny it, you know, we're gonna have to find out if they're willing to use their sick time, you know, what, I don't know. I don't know how you want to go proceed from here.
Or vacation. I
Or
don't know.
vacation, you know, I'm sure they both have enough, either one.
That would be an alternative rather than to get paid, rather than being laid off.
So
But
could
yet
we
if
make
they,
a,
but yet if they were furloughed, let's call it, which is the same as layoff, they don't get a salary. If we called it furlough, they can apply for unemployment. You know, it would seem to me that it would be better for them to do that than to use up their sick pay or vacation pay.
well, why don't you give them that option, Paul? You know, you
How
can
do you-
ask them.
How do you word that in a motion? If we
That's
need a
what I'm
motion
asking.
tonight. We
There's
need
a
some help from legal.
Yeah, I would make a motion to where they have that option. If you call them tomorrow, Paul, and they say, I'm not using my sick time or my vacation pay, then you say you're furloughed. You know, it's that simple. I just think you word it in a way, legal, you could help us out, but
I guess they would have to
Unwise.
what the pluses and minuses are of both those options, or those
Answer you in here too.
vacation, sick leave, furlough, unemployment, all those things. They'd have to sort that out, and I really don't have any answers what's best.
Yeah, each employee may have a different answer.
I think it's real simple. If they don't want to use their sick time or their vacation, then, you know, they're required to, you know, they're furloughed then or whatever, but what's other board members have any thoughts? I mean, I don't know. My whole point is, you know, the public, you know, most businesses have laid off their people. I know we're under, you know, we're a government center here, but it's like, I don't want in 2 months to say, oh, wow, you paid all your employees to sit at home and do nothing for 2 months, you know? You know, we didn't do that. We took action immediately. We laid people off. We brought back people when they were essential. And now we're at a point to where we have a couple employees that can't work from home and they can't come into the office. Paul, Francis, you're muted. I can't hear Paul Francis. He's trying to talk, but you know something, the other employee in the treasurer's department, are we allowed to use names, Tom?
Well, can we do this without naming names?
Yeah, I'm trying not to use names here. The other employee in the treasurer's department, have we asked her if she could come in? Can she perform the same duty Amy or the other employee performs?
Can I respond to that?
Yep.
Regardless of what we do, in a couple of weeks, we're gonna need to call one of the two back because we have to prepare tax bills starting about the 1st of May or so. So whatever it is, in a couple of weeks, we're gonna need somebody back for a couple of weeks.
But but I'm saying you could bring the other employee back now, who doesn't have to care for a child. You could bring her back now.
If we had work. Right at the present time, we don't because our counters are closed and so is the drive-through.
But from my understanding, the employee that's working there now said there's enough work there for another employee to work.
But not full-time. And if we went on furlough, let's say the one person took the number 5 child care deal and the other one was furloughed. Can we call somebody back in a week or two furlough and then use them till we don't need it and then go back on furlough until the office is opened again? I don't know the answer to that.
I would say yes.
Then let's do that.
Can you explain that again? What are your thoughts again, Paul? How do you want this to work?
Well, the one employee would take the childcare exception, number 5, and receive 2/3 of her salary for X number of weeks. Probably we won't need them all because hopefully this will all be done by the end of May, we hope, or so. And the other employee then we would furlough. Both of them would have benefits covered by the township. The one that's furloughed, if we need her back in a couple of weeks for a week or two, and then back on furlough until. If that can be done by furlough, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, you just got to word it in a way, because what if you call them, Paul, and they both say, I'll use up my vacation and sick time? Then you don't have to worry about any of it.
Yeah, and I don't know about jumping back and forth between unemployment and working.
I know.
I guess it can be done. I don't know.
I would think maybe, but it'd just be very complicated for them.
I don't know how to word a motion, Tom. Help me out.
Marty, what are they just trying to make a motion that we're talking about a couple of positions in the treasurer's office, right?
Correct.
That's all we're talking about, right? That we would, Trudy, I see Trudy's.
I just wanted to say that Lori just said Nancy is on the phone. I don't know if we can put her into this meeting if she has comments about it, because she couldn't get in through the site.
Well, this is supposed to be a public meeting. And so anyone who has, from the public now.
Well, no, she's talking about Nancy Tinnevery. She couldn't get on the setup.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. If she has access, she ought to be able to weigh in.
Right. I think they're trying to let her in right now. I don't know if she's mute. Oh,
This is Nancy Tinbury. I'm speaking of public comment, if that's what you have going.
no, I thought you were trying to get into the meeting.
So you're telling me that I can't speak in public comment?
No, Nancy, you could go ahead and speak. We're still talking about the employees. Have you been watching?
I get that.
Okay.
That. Yes, I've been watching, but I'm not entering the meeting just on the phone. I'm calling as a township public person to make a comment.
Okay, we're not at comment time. We're still talking about the employee issue. Do you want to?
Well,
But she's a board.
She's a board member. She doesn't want to speak as a board member though, Tom. She's trying to speak as I don't know what she's doing. What?
All right. Well, I didn't know it was Nancy Tinnevery when Trudy was mentioning somebody was on the line. I mean, she's a board member.
Go ahead.
She can come to the meeting right
I'm
now.
I'm not talking about the employees.
Okay. Okay. So I guess she doesn't.
Does she want to participate as a board member right this minute?
I want to make a public statement that I was prevented from entering this meeting. I was at the township 45 minutes early. I participated in 3 or 4 practice tests. And in those practice tests, I never had a problem getting in. When I signed it, when the meeting began, it said my session ended. I tried several times. I called IT right. I made every attempt to get into this meeting and was closed out every single time. I am livid. You're not going to hear the end of this because for some reason I have been prevented from entering this meeting, and it's just unacceptable. It's despicable for someone to keep me from being in the meeting because they didn't want to hear some of the things I might have had to say. So I am saying, as a duly elected trustee of this township, I have been prevented from this virtual meeting for some reason, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I don't know who's responsible, but I cannot believe that this was done, was accomplished. I've had 3 or 4 practice tests and never had a problem getting in. Doesn't it seem a little strange that the night of the meeting, 10 people can get in, but I can't get in? Okay, something's up, and I am going to get to the bottom of it.
May I make a comment to that?
No, we'll get to it. We don't need to get into that now. Let's get back to where our discussion is. Let's get on to the employees and figure out what we want to do as a board. Okay, we've got some options on the table. Mr. Steiner's had some good observations, legal. So, I mean, we just got to figure out what we want to do with them. Like I said, this board is trying to take care of all the employees from day one, and we have. Now, there's people at home right now that are on unemployment because they can't work at the township and they can't, they're not considered essential, whatever. You know, there are people at home right now collecting unemployment. So what's the board's decision? What's the board? What do you guys want to do?
This is Marty. Does it come down to a question that the supervisor determines that a position is not needed at this time because of lack of work, or maybe the person can't come in and can't work at home? So the question then is, okay, you either take your sick leave or vacation, all is paid time, or you're going to be furloughed. Is it that simple?
I think it's that simple. I think it's that simple.
And we would offer that as an option to the employee, correct?
Well, that would be your decision to make that. If you're gonna, as a board, make that decision, then yes, that's what you would agree to propose to these people. If that's the angle that you're trying to strive to achieve.
So Paul Peroni, you're trying to get something done tonight that would cause the furlough to happen, right?
If you do nothing tonight, okay, by the time our next board meeting happens, more than likely this is all over.
All right.
And listen.
Would a motion, would a motion or a thought of allowing the 2 employees in the treasurer's department at their option to use up their sick time or vacation time or be furloughed or be qualified under the whatever the name of this Family First coronavirus results item?
I want to say something too to the board. This is not my agenda item. I didn't put this on. So I'm speaking to it, but I didn't put this on. So I've done what I felt is best for all my departments. Okay. I talked to Mr. Francis today about what his plans were for his department. You know, and here we are. So you're talking about 2 employees for a couple of weeks. That's if in 2 weeks, what happens in 2 weeks if you're still in the same situation, Mr. Francis, with the employee that's got to care for a child? Mr. Steiner?
Just a suggestion there, similar to going with Mr. Francis said. So I think maybe we recommend the furlough with the option of vacation or taking your paid vacation or sick time. If at that time, let's just say they have 2 weeks they want to use. If the furlough can be lifted after the 2 weeks, they'll come back to work. If they take their 2 weeks and let's just say there's a reason that we can't bring them back yet and you need to continue the furlough, they're already set to know that they're going to be furloughed after those 2 weeks that they use their vacation or sick. If they decide not to take vacation or sick, then they are furloughed immediately.
That sounds very concise and understandable. Do you want to focus only on 2 employees, or do you want a broad stroke for all employees? Sounds like you already made decisions with respect to the rest of the employees, so maybe you do want to just focus on the 2 employees.
Well, currently we still have 2 employees in assessing that are laid off. You have 2 employees in ordinance that are laid off. You have 1 employee in building that's laid off and 1 employee in planning that's laid off. So, but they're collecting unemployment. So, I mean, we're in a different situation than what Mr. Francis is talking about right here. We still have 2 employees that are being paid. All the rest of them are either at work or working from home. And like assessing, they're backed up for months. So like, one of the employees is set up at home, and she's being brought home a lot of work to get back up on. Mr. Steiner?
So this question is for Mr. Camperth. So if you said today that we put an across the board option to furlough, as we just discussed a minute ago, and does it take the board to allow a supervisor or a treasurer or the clerk at some point, say a week, 2, 3 weeks down the road, to enact a furlough? Does it take it going back to the board to say, go ahead and furlough them, or can they legally make that decision in 2 or 3 weeks if there's no work, as long as we've already put the plan into place?
First of all, I would say using the term furlough probably would take board action because it's a benefit provided to those several people that other laid off people aren't getting. And it's a continuation of benefits. And I think that would be a township board decision rather than a supervisor's decision.
All the other ones that are laid off do not qualify for benefits because they're part-time.
So that furlough would be basically for your full-time anyway.
Correct.
Not part-time.
Because benefits.
All of our part-time are laid off and have been laid off, and they don't plan to come back until, this is lifted. So we're only talking about 2 employees.
I guess I'd like to hear Rick's question again.
So my question was, with what we discussed about implementing furlough as of tomorrow, say, and then with Mr. Francis' option of allowing them to take their paid sick time or paid vacation time. And let's just say say they took 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, we are still not prepared to bring them back to work. They would automatically be moved on to a true furlough because we've already voted to do that.
That's okay.
Without having to come back to the board, we've already taken a vote to do that. So if the supervisor or clerk or treasurer say there's still no work here in 2 weeks, the furlough notice has already been placed out there, with the exception of taking paid vacation time or paid sick time.
You indicated 2 weeks. Are you saying that they would only have the option to?
No, I just use an example. If they took 2 weeks.
No, I think that is a good idea, that if they take the option of using vacation pay and or sick time, and when that expires, or when that comes to an end, I would have to say that they would transition over to a furlough.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It would transfer them unless we had work for them to come back to.
Yeah, the board would be approving that whole thing tonight.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. If we came back in 2, 3 weeks and they don't have any more vacation, they're sick that they want to take, they automatically go right to the furlough if they don't have work available.
That should be part of your motion. That would be a good idea.
Mr. Francis?
Instead of concentrating just on 2 people, what if we made that for all full-time people who at some point in time during this closure are not needed on a full-time basis, that they are allowed to use up their sick pay or vacation pay, and if they choose not to do that, they're on furlough.
Well,
It applies to any full-time person.
I like the equality of that, Paul, but the only thing is, you gotta have some people working there. They're, you know, I mean, who makes the decision? Who gets to take advantage of that? It should be the board, I think. Because,
Or supervisor.
or somebody has to make a decision who, I don't think it can be given to everybody, or you might not have anybody working, you know, doing the essential part of the government, you know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm thinking Paul Francis was saying if they are laid off or if their job is not needed and that decision was made by their immediate supervisor, that they would get the option of using sick leave or vacation.
All right. Yeah, so does everybody, now that Marty's explained it to me, does everybody understand what was just said? I mean, there's some question mark about who it is out there that this could apply to, I guess, which is somewhat disconcerting, but I don't see why I guess that could work, because somebody's going to be cloaked with that authority to make that decision, a department head, an official who's in charge of a certain department, or I guess you could designate somebody. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
And should that arise, then all the board members would be notified. If they had a problem with that, we can vote to rescind that particular person or whatever. But at least it's there, approved in advance, should that case arise.
Hey, Mr. Francis, when do you have to have your employees back? When do you need your employees back? I mean, when are they going to be?
Well, Krista and I have talked.
Is it until the window?
Krista and I have talked about it, and sometime in the first week of May, we need to have somebody there to help with the tax bills.
Okay. Okay.
Whether or not that can be done at home, I don't know. I'll have to investigate that. Maybe it can. I don't know at this point.
Okay. Okay, does somebody want to make a motion?
Marty and Tom, help me word that motion that would apply, that allows, should it arise that any full-time person that is determined it's not needed on a full-time basis at this point can have the option of using up vacation or sick time or go on furlough.
And if their vacation and sick time is used up or they decide to stop using it, that can be automatically transitioned to furlough.
Right.
Yeah, and what, does that include the part we were just talking about where a department head or an official in charge can make the decision for any employee who might fall into that category, that is a full-time employee not needed, who would be given the same treatment?
Well, Paul Francis indicated that if it were determined that that employee is not needed. So
Yeah,
I guess that's inferred that the appropriate official is making that decision.
yeah, okay. Trudy, can you make a motion out of that? I mean, heck, did you write that down? I mean, is that close, or do you want something a little more, a little better? And Mr. Steiner, does that hit the things you were trying to accomplish?
That's pretty much the way I was trying to explain it.
Quick question. I believe Marty hit on it. The employee ultimately gets to be the deciding factor as to how much vacation and or sick time they use prior to accepting furlough, correct?
That's the idea.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, the part is we don't want to say you're only allowed to take because they've earned that time.
Yeah, and I would prefer it not be an all or nothing when we believe that a furloughed employee will be back, and we don't want to negatively impact plans that may be down the road.
Correct.
I think we've done everything we can to lay out as many options for employees at this point.
I test me out on the wording of a motion. If we move to allow any full-time employee whose position is determined that it is not essential during this closure be allowed the option of using up sick pay or vacation pay or go on furlough.
Starting when? Talking effective immediately?
I have no problem with that. Or the first of the week, let's say. Make it a good break time. I don't.
Today would be a good day.
I was say there was the
All
pay
right.
period coming up.
And you also want to incorporate the caveat if they determine that they're no longer want to use any more accumulated sick leave or vacation time, even though there may be some left, that it automatically transition to furlough.
Correct.
I would make that as a friendly amendment to Mr. Francis.
Okay. Now,
Is that a second to TC?
Yeah, you can accept that as a second and a friendly amendment if Mr. Francis will accept it.
So
Sure
can
I
I
do.
repeat what I have to see if this
Please.
is what the motion is? So I'm gonna word a motion pretty much that is, there's not enough work to bring a full-time employee back to the office or to work from home, that they will be given the choice to either use their sick vacation time or to go to furlough. And if at some time they run out of sick or vacation, they would automatically transfer to a full furlough unless there is work to bring them back.
And the employee can opt to go to furlough even though they have a balance of vacation and or sick time.
Okay.
now, we all know there's people at home working. There's approximately 1, 2, 3 working from home right now. Okay, nobody knows how much they're working. We just know their workload. Like Trudy, in your office, do you have 40 hours worth of work for your employee to be at home?
Oh,
Or are we just-
definitely.
Okay, so
Definitely.
for like an assessing department, we're gonna make sure there's 40 hours worth of work. So as long as, and the building department, their phone calls are, probably exceeding that. So I think we're all set. I like the direction. I think it's good. I think it's fair. I think this board has been more than fair over the past month and a week or whatever it's been. So I'm proud of what we've done. I think we've made some good decisions. So who supported that?
I did.
Mr. Clements supported. Any more discussion?
Yes.
Mr.
How
Francis?
how does this affect the one employee that we've talked about earlier that qualifies under number 5 for caring for her son at home and drawing 2/3 of her compensation? Does it affect it at all? I guess that's a question for legal.
I'm going to take a shot here that if that employee wants to invoke the federal law, it's my understanding the first 2 weeks would be without pay, but I'm also thinking she could use her accumulated sick time to get paid to fill in that first 10 days. And then she could continue to get paid sick time for up to 12 weeks. Maybe it's 10 weeks, the first 2 weeks.
No, not less than 2/3 of her salary.
And 2/3 of her salary. So I think that person would have to make that decision to invoke that federal law.
And so Marty, if that person did not invoke the federal law, could they they could automatically fall into this motion, right?
Yes, I think so.
Correct.
All right, Paul?
I have no problem with that. Where does it say on this sheet that they have to lose 10 days of pay? Or is
I
that
don't-
in another law?
It's in the statute. You have a section that we can cite.
Yep, in the federal statute, under section B, relationship to paid leave, there's unpaid leave for the initial 10 days. So the first
Okay.
10 days for which an employee takes leave under this section may consist of unpaid leave. The employee, however, may elect to substitute any accrued vacation leave or sick leave for that 10 days of unpaid leave.
Can you give the full site?
Yep. Well, this is kind of a long statute, but subsection B that says relationship to paid leave in the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act.
That's the same thing. That's the same thing with unemployment. You always have a waiting week. Same thing. Mr. Clements, you had a question?
I was just going to respectfully call the question as that in it's a single individual that could be handled via email and phone call.
Okay. Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Mr. Montry, Mr. Montry,
I think we lost
Sorry, I
him,
was
Trudy.
muted. Sorry, I was muted. Aye.
okay. Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye, Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. I don't know, Mr. Francis, you had something that you wanted to say in regards to the phone call we received from Trustee Tinneberry. I find it, I don't know what to say. I'm not there at the Township Hall. I didn't set it up. I know Mr. Welling has set it up and it's, so go ahead.
Well, my only comment was the implication and what she said was she's implying that some board member did that, and that assuredly did not happen. And she shouldn't be implying that. If she meant to imply it, she shouldn't have. If I interpreted what she said incorrectly, I apologize to her for that. But somehow we had a glitch. It worked this afternoon when we all were on it. So I don't know what's causing it. This is all new for all of us. And I just resent the implication that she came. That's it.
Okay. All right, let's move on to 8J, employee. Oh, wait, we're there. Okay, number 9 is comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes, so it's about a 30-second. Mr. Montry, did you have something you wanted to say? You look like you're good. You have it's delayed about 30 seconds, so public comment time is now. I don't know if we have anybody in the bank waiting to talk, Mr. Welling, but go ahead and let's let public comments start coming in. I know we've had a few phone calls come in earlier that were in the bank. I'm not sure if George can hear us or not, if anybody's waiting in the bank, if he's letting anybody in. But now is public comment time. We'll say it again. For anybody that's watching out there that wants to make a public comment, the number and the pin is on the Buckeye cable. It's on the Facebook site. So if you'd like to call in, please do so. Just leave your name and address.
And there is a little lag time on him queuing it up so that we can hear, but the intention is to hear them all.
Okay, we have a call coming in. Not sure George is supposed to admit the caller, right?
Yep.
Correct, and then I'll let them know when time's up.
Okay. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead with your public comment.
Yes, this is Dale Track, 2842 Sanibel Lane. Yep, I'm here, Paul.
Go ahead, make your comment.
All right, I can be sympathetic to what's going on with the township employees, and I just want the board to keep in mind that there's plenty of people that are going through the same things that the township is going through right now, and you have to understand that they're taxpayers as well, and they're not going to have the benefits of what's going on at Township Hall. So one other thing is that you guys need to concentrate on, this might not be a V-shaped recovery. And with a V-shaped recovery, you can anticipate certain revenues coming back, but there's so much uncertainty out there right now that you're not going to guarantee what kind of revenues are coming in townships. You guys might need to put a contingency plan in to see what employees are going to be necessary and essential going forward. And I'd also like to mention that as a member of Bedford Citizens for Fiscal Responsibility, for those that are in need, we will be doing a food drive to collect for MCOP out of Monroe on Sunday, April 26th from 12 to 4 over at the Bedford High School at the stadium. It'll be a drive-through event. You can put your food into your trunk, open up your trunk, we'll pick it up out of there, and MCOP will be distributing throughout the town, throughout the county. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for your comments. Any more comments? Okay, go ahead, sir, with your comment. State your name and
This is
address.
Elizabeth Gray, Bedford Township, 7531 Monroe Road, as a past employee. The only thing I need to think you should say on the, on the employee part, and what you did, and that you should all understand that when we elect you, that we elect you all with equal votes, and all of you to take care of your own departments. And I think when you decide to call people back in, it should be that that department has to say whether they come in or not somebody else. They are there as their supervisor, their elected official. It falls on their shoulders if the work doesn't get done. I would like to tell you that I worked in 2 of the departments there, and each one has a criteria of why those people are there and why they're in demand. Not that you're thinking of putting them there and then letting them go on a layoff, because they will find jobs someplace else. Thank you very much. Good luck, and all of you stay healthy.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, do we have any more comments? Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
Yep, go ahead with your comment. Just state your name and address, sir.
Very good. Yes, my name is Art Rios. I'm at 8149 Bay Court. Just want to let you know I appreciate this work you guys are doing. It's a thankful job, but there's always a lot of diversity. I don't know what you're paid, but I do know that it takes a lot of effort. So keep up that care. You know, work things out best where you can put people first when you can, and that's fine. Certainly, I'm interested in when government beyond this area lets us do building of homes and clearing of land of trees. I got interest in that for a piece of property I have. And so as soon as you can get that permit thing going, I'm looking forward to where that can kick off again when allowed. So I'll keep in touch with the federal side, and when they let things, the state side, and when they let things go, that's fine. But yeah, keep on going, guys. It sounded good. This is a good effort you got going. Okay?
Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate them.
Yep.
Trudy, do we have any more comments?
No, there's no more waiting.
Okay. We'll give it a few seconds here, and then we'll move on to board members' comments. Okay, seeing no comments, moving on to board members' comments. Mr. Montroy?
Nothing major. I wish I would have written something down as we're sitting here talking. I'm thinking, I guess I didn't plan anything for public comment, but I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say something along the lines of being opposed to the governor's current excessive quarantines, and I guess separately from like our current motion being those are township employees, but for an elected official to deem any person's means of livelihood, whether to make that decision on whether that is essential or non-essential. I think that is wrong, and I think it's, personally, I believe it's within the Michigan Constitution. I think it's unconstitutional, but that I would just be remiss if I didn't say how against that action I am, and how sorry I feel for all of the people through no fault of their own are being put in economic dire straits. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clements?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that and say that as a trustee in almost 4 years of working for my neighbors, I've probably received as many communications and phone calls and concerns during this than any subject we've dealt with. Whether you like what the governor did or didn't do, I think we all agree that there's a lot of illogic that has been applied to this situation. The fact that the government can put up real estate signs, but yet realtors can't, is not equitable. The fact that you can mow a lawn for a government building, but a private landscaper can't mow a lawn, is inequitable. What we should be talking about is what areas are safe and what areas are not safe. And I think most people have common sense to understand, and I think with reasonable oversight, that can be achieved. It's my hope that the governor will lift part of the shelter in place and will make safe and not safe decisions effective May 1st. If she doesn't, then I would ask our legislators to be sure they step in and apply greater pressure. I can say this, everybody has an opinion. There's 7 of us that sit on this board. We all have different opinions on elements, and each one of you who've called me have a very different opinion, and I respect every single one of them. I hope you know that we all as a group are trying to do what's best for our community and get through this and try to get to the other side. As a small business owner, I understand as much as anybody out there what COVID has done. You know, having a growing, strong business and going to zero income is a tough place to be. Fortunately, my faith guides me and my friends guide me, and I'm optimistic. We will come back. We are Americans. And if nothing else, we are tenacious. But just realize that through this, we have to stick together, and we have to be sure that we keep falling back on the phrase safe and not safe, because we got to get moving, and sitting and waiting, you know, month after month after month begins to get questionable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Francis.
I have a short statement I would like to read in public if you'll bear with me. As most of you may know, this is an election year, and many potential candidates for elected federal, state, and local public positions, including our township board positions, have made announcements regarding their desire to run for public office. Some of those announced candidates, and maybe some unannounced candidates who may be listening tonight. I've had the privilege of serving in this township board for almost 16 years, 8 years as trustee, and I'm in my 8th year as township treasurer. I have sincerely appreciated the opportunity to be of service to my community and have enjoyed my time in office. Those of you who know me well know that I'm not a politician, never have been and never will be. I tend to speak my mind regardless of the political correctness of the words coming out of my mouth, sometimes to my detriment. Maybe this is another one of those times. The duties and responsibilities of the treasurer's office and the clerk's job are specifically spelled out by Michigan statute, regulations, and procedures, and simply must be precisely followed. For a township the size of Bedford, an experienced staff in the treasurer's and clerk's office are vitally important to protect and safeguard the township's assets and records. Speaking on behalf of the treasurer's office, I am extremely confident that those duties and responsibilities are being properly administered. Over the past several months, I've experienced some health issues that have taken a toll on my stamina. For this reason, and at the urging of my loving family, I have decided not to seek re-election in the upcoming August primary and November general election. My deputy treasurer, Ms. Krista Jandasek, has filed for candidate for treasurer position. She has worked for the township office for just under 18 years, and frankly, actually knows the nuts and bolts of the job better than I do. In my opinion, she would make an excellent township treasurer, speaking for myself personally, not for the board. And I will fully support her candidacy to replace me. Krista is not a politician either, but she certainly knows and can handle the job. And in my view, knowledge, experience, and integrity are the most important traits to consider when voting for a township treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it fairly short. Just piggyback a little bit off of Mr. Montry and Mr. Clements. I will say that I believe that our governor has stepped over her boundaries based on our constitutional rights. I don't disagree that some things had to be done to help protect the citizens of the state of Michigan. If you look at what has been happening in the state of Michigan and around the country in various states, the liberties of our fellow man have been trampled on so strongly in some cases that I think it created a part of out of their frustrations because of the overstepping the boundaries by the governors. I do hope that anyone that does wish to protest to please to have some social distancing, protect yourselves, protect one another, and also we don't want you to be sick and make it worse for our healthcare providers that are out there on the front lines dealing with it every day. They don't need another statistic coming into their facilities and needing additional help when we ourselves could prevent it. I know that I have been working from home since March 17th, and I'm going a little stir crazy. I probably put 25% more hours in from home than I did when I was in the office on a regular basis. But it's something we all have to do. We also need to understand that sometimes tempers can flare. We all need to be cognizant and be mindful of each other. We don't understand the pressures that everyone is under. We've got pressure. We all have our own pressures that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And now with this stay-at-home situation, it has compounded it for everyone. So please take a little patience and think of your fellow man when you do react to things. But I do hope our governor gets something moving forward quickly, but we all must do it safely. One thing I do want to mention to Mr. Track's comment, I think that we did cover one of the issues when we discussed the furlough situation tonight, that our department heads, that are elected officials per se, do have the capability to make those adjustments now going forward, that when our governor does reduce the restrictions and people are starting to come back to work, if there is no work, that those people would be furloughed. So I believe that our full-time officials will take that into consideration knowing their jobs, knowing their departments, and knowing the workloads and everything that has to be done to keep things on track for the township. Other than that, last but not least, once again, stay safe, protect yourselves, and protect all of our healthcare and our emergencies personnel. I'm very concerned about those people every day, as I know all of you are. Keep everybody in your prayers. That's all.
Okay, Ms. Hirschberger? Ms. Hirschberger?
I just want to remind everyone in the public that Bedford Township does not have a May election. I've received several phone calls and applications for ballots. Our next election will be August 4th, and my department will be sending out those applications mid to late May. So if you have any questions or you want to be put on our permanent absentee list, just give my department a phone call and we can do that for you. But other than that, I have nothing.
Okay, I have a lot. It's going to be a very interesting year. It's going to be a very difficult year, I think, for this board. There's going to be a lot of decisions that have to be made. They're talking about major cuts to townships for our quarterly payments. So there's going to be tough decisions that are going to have to be made. I'm proud of the decisions the board has made in the last month and a half. I think they were wise decisions. I'm very disappointed that Ms. Tinneberry couldn't get on tonight. I'm at home in my bedroom right now, so I have no idea why. I couldn't believe that it was intentional. I just don't feel like anybody on this board works that way. You know, I hope that it is a glitch, but I'm bummed that she couldn't get on. Nancy's a good board member and always has a lot of good input, and I always like to hear it. And to the employees that are watching, this board appreciates you, the employees, more than you know, especially in some of our major departments where things are critical in assessing and planning and building. All of our departments are critical, but you know, especially in elections and treasurer's department, those are very important, essential. And you know, we're doing the best we can do as the elected officials to keep employees safe and also to keep them working. But some tough decisions had to be made tonight, and ultimately we tried to avoid them. We tried to get everybody to work from home and to come in, but that's not always the case that we can do. So, so yeah, the board, I've talked to Dave Manning a little bit to find out what these cuts are going to be possibly going in the future. I know there's going to be something. It could be up to 50 to 75%. Don't know how long, but we'll be looking for that. I'm excited to get moving on the budget. I'm not sure how this board wants to proceed with the budget. In 9 days, I guess we could see all 7 board members from this type of forum. So we definitely need to get moving on the budget and learn what our cuts are going to be. You know, as far as the state revenue, we need to really start figuring out as far as money that is going to be paid for the fire department station right now. I don't think this board's decided how that is going to be funded, so I look for Mr. Francis to give us some information on that. You know, as far as road projects, I do know we're still waiting on Whiteford Township to talk to us about Adler Road. You know, as far as them being able to fund that project this year, they're trying to lump in a couple of different projects into one bond. So it's not looking that great for Adler Road to be done this year, which, you know, might be a positive thing. But we're definitely going to have to look at some ends of some different cuts. I hope it's not employees, because I believe every employee at the township is needed for the people that we do have. I hope that Ms. Tinneberry can keep moving forward on the capital improvement plan with her group, because I think it's crucial for us to get something in place now. A lot of these festivals are the unknowns. People are excited about the festivals upcoming, but we're going to know more May 1st. So if you're excited about Summerfest in mid-June, we'll let you know what's going on with that. Because if there's still more restrictions, as far as gathering sizes, we won't be able to have Summerfest, unfortunately. I echo some of the other board members. I'm getting phone calls every day. Oh, why is so-and-so cutting grass down the road? And I can't, well, keep in mind, this board didn't make any of these decisions, and this board's not regulating the actions of people that in the community right now. I totally disagree with the fact that people can't cut grass out there, but the township can. So I echo a lot of what was said tonight from other board members. I'm getting phone calls every day about why this builder's building a house, and we don't oversee that. Our ordinance doesn't oversee that. So we don't know why certain people are doing certain things. They could be considered essential. I do know there's some work being done on some construction projects because all the rain we had, the foundations could be failure. So we don't know why certain people are working on certain projects. So other than that, I just want to thank the community. This community has come together like no other, in supporting each other, supporting businesses. These businesses have, some of the restaurants have thrived through this, with people eating out and supporting them, people making face masks and doing everything you're doing to support one another. We appreciate you so much. We appreciate the healthcare workers, our fire department. Chief, you guys are doing an amazing job. We appreciate you more than you will ever know. Putting your lives in danger for us is just, we just appreciate it so much. And all the healthcare workers and everybody out there that's busting their butt every day, while we are at home, in the comforts of our home, you're working overtime and putting your lives in danger. We appreciate you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And I know I can speak for every board member that we appreciate you more than you will ever know. And I just want to say I appreciate everybody on this board. And Paul Francis, I'm going to miss you. I've enjoyed my time with you as supervisor. I didn't as trustee. there were some times we had some rough times, but I tell you, I've really enjoyed you at Township Hall. You're a sharp guy. You've kept me in line a lot of these times with our road meetings and stuff, and I appreciate you more than you know. You're a good man, and you'll be missed.
It takes more than one to keep you in line, though. See.
That's right. But be safe, Bedford Township board members. We appreciate all the hard work Trudy and George, you guys put into putting this together. I know it's taken a lot of work, and there's been some frustrating moments, but I know you guys are working hard, and I think it was a successful night. So you guys have a good night, and if you have no further comments, we stand. Trudy, you have one more comment? You're
just
muted.
want to make sure that after all the board members, if they could just stay on for a minute after we end the meeting.
Okay.
Other than that, we stand adjourned. Yeah, I pounded my.